Hey guys, welcome back and Happy New Year. Andrew here with Ambient Endeavors, and today I thought it'd be fun to do a video comparing one of my all-time favorite reverb pedals with a recent favorite that was released just a couple months ago. Compare and contrast and see which is the right one for you. If you're new to the channel, thank you so much for watching. Please hit subscribe and like below and engage in the comments with a question or a comment. As you watch through this video, I'd love to hear from you what stands out, and maybe if you come to a conclusion on which of these two pedals you would choose, drop that below too, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Okay, so let's start by introducing the two subjects at hand. First, we have the Strymon Flint version 2. What I think is a quintessential modern classic in terms of stereo, multi-algorithmic digital reverbs. And next up we have one of my recent favorites. It came out a couple months ago from Keeley Electronics and Andy Timmons. It's their Nocturne, and again a really powerful and beautiful multi-mode stereo digital reverb. As we go through this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about the similarities and differences of both of these pedals, and we're going to have extended sound samples for each of the three modes of reverbs that you get in both of these pedals. If you want to just jump to those sounds, there's timestamps below. Feel free to do that. But the reason for shooting this video in the first place was based on the similarity in the global design of both of these pedals. They each feature three distinct reverb modes, and they really compare quite nicely, at least on the surface, in terms of the style or the type of reverb. In both pedals you have a spring reverb, a plate reverb, and what I'll call an ambient leaning reverb mode. A reverb that has a deeper, longer decay, just leans more into those ethereal, soundscapey type reverb textures. Throughout this video, I'll be playing an Orangewood Guitars Clementine semi-hollow with humbucker pickups into each of these reverb pedals one at a time in stereo onto a Walrus Audio ACS1 Mark II. Let's start by hearing some of the spring reverb sounds on each of these pedals and hear how they compare and contrast in a couple different settings. We're going to start with a shorter, more modest spring reverb sound, and then go to a setting with higher mix and longer decay for just a bigger, longer dwelling spring reverb sound. Let's check it out. There's a lot of points of comparison when we're talking about just the reverb modes of these two pedals, but obviously if you zoom out to the product and the design, there's a couple stark contrasts. One being you get a whole tremolo section along with the reverbs in the Flint here, which adds even more versatility. If you're grabbing a pedal for a gig and you kind of need to maximize a number of different effects, the Flint is awesome for that, especially in Americana or country or singer-songwriter contexts, because you have that tremolo circuit built in, along with the 3 unique voicings of reverbs on the right side. This no doubt leads to the slightly higher price tag on the Flint versus the Nocturne. You have a $350 pedal in the Flint versus a $270 pedal in the Nocturne. But what I do love about the Nocturne is that they have enhanced this platform and this design that Keeley has been using for the last couple of years with some really notable features, one being MIDI on the back side that you can access via TRS there. You also have a remote jack on the back to help navigate through presets, and that's another point of contrast and sort of a point for the Nocturne. You get onboard presets with the Nocturne, so if you are looking for a reverb that just has a little more flexibility in the live setting, you can access a preset for each of the 3 modes of reverbs on the fly to kind of alternate between different sounds. There's stereo in and out on both of the pedals. It's a little bit easier to do that on the Nocturne with 2 dedicated jacks for each in and out versus the scheme on the Flint that has a TRS jack input. The Flint is a tad smaller in terms of footprint. It's a little bit more compact, but both pedals sit in that kind of mid range in terms of size. And I find that if you're building out a board, it's really pretty convenient to put either of these on a board, especially since it can tend to be a main sound and a main effect in a lot of people's rigs. Overall, you get a little bit more control on the Nocturne in terms of fine tuning and sculpting your tone. You have a dedicated modulation control for each of the 3 modes. In spring mode, that will adjust the age of the springs and give you just a little bit different of a texture or character there. But you can add modulation to either the plate or the Nocturne sound in a way that the Flint doesn't allow you to. Both pedals do feature a pre-delay control, which is really nice, while the Nocturne does give you a little bit more control over your EQ with both a tone control and a high-pass filter to contour the bass or the low end of your reverb sound. Let's move on to the plate reverb sounds, another classic reverb texture. And here, again, some more modest settings followed by deeper and almost ambient leaning plate reverb sounds. Let's check it out. The last mode we're going to check out in each of these pedals is admittedly my favorite mode of each pedal. The 80s reverb on the Flint is one that I love going to for more ambient and soundscapey type textures. It adds that little bit of modulation in the reverb trails in a really musical way and can get really long and deep without getting too overbearing. There's a cool way that you can set this to create these really nice pad-like textures under your playing or for compositions. And so there's a lot that I love about the 80s mode in the Flint. And it's also why I was curious and kind of have been evaluating the Nocturne mode of that pedal. A similar type sound, and Keeley set out to recreate this halo effect that Andy Timmons uses primarily in delays, where you're cascading dual delays and things, creating a lot of taps and repeats to create this haloing effect around your notes. They tried to grab that essence and that effect and put it into a reverb, and I think they did a really, really beautiful job with it. It sits around your notes in a cool way, and when you add in the modulation in that setting, it just gives this really nice ambiance and this really nice dwell and lush reverb tone that doesn't get in the way of your playing. So we're going to hear sounds from both of those modes now and really lean into the more ambient sounding textures that I love and that I think both of these pedals do excel at in different ways. Let's check it out. So that's a side-by-side comparison of two of my favorite reverb pedals, the Flint, which has been a long-time favorite of mine, and the Keeley Nocturne, a recent favorite and one that is really making a case with its versatility and flexibility, along with just some really beautiful reverb algorithms that span from that classic traditional spring and plate style reverb into the unique and beautiful Nocturne mode that gives you some lovely ambiance and more soundscapey atmospheric sounds. I hope this was helpful. I would love to hear your feedback and your conclusions, if you come to any, what you liked or didn't like about each of the pedals, or which one you would choose if you had to pick just one of these two pedals. Drop a note in the comments below and I'd love to chat, and we'll see you on the next video. Take care.